I have 2 stories from Rebecca that I feel like this is a good transition, actually.
Okay.
So one of them, she was on a date with a guy recently, and she said he was nice, like they vibed, and then at the end of the date, I think they got drinks, and he was like, oh, I can drive you home. And she was like, no, thank you, like I'll just call an Uber. And they're outside on the street, and he's like, no, just let me drive you. And she's like, no, I'm really gonna get an Uber. And he's like, but I have a Tesla. And she was like, okay, like I'm not, it's fine, like I'm gonna call an Uber. And she said he got so mad and just like stormed off and didn't say bye to her, and was so mad that she didn't get in a car with him. And I was like, my brain goes to like, I think he was gonna hurt you or something, or like he wanted to know where you lived to like drop you off, or I don't know. But then I said that story to my guy friend, and he was like, I feel like it also could have been pride, like he wanted to like prove something to her. And he's like, oh, I have a Tesla. And she's like, I don't care what kind of car you have. I'm not going to get in a car with you.
Yeah, especially Rebecca, absolute queen.
Yeah. And then for him to literally be like, well, fine. And then storm off and not say bye to her. And then she called her friend on the way home, and she was like, oh, let me see a picture of him. So she goes to his Hinge profile to screenshot. It's already gone. He already unmatched her in like that
level of
minutes.
Petty is absolutely unmatched.
Crazy.
And ego. That's just such an ego thing.
I know. I mean, I hope it's an ego thing and it's not like he actually had other intentions, but so scary. So scary. Okay, and then
That's crazy.
She's been having bad luck too, but
I love that she's going out.
Yes, true.
Makes me happy.
Another guy, it was so funny hearing her tell this story. This one's just absurd. So she meets up with this guy who's a chef, and they were getting drinks, and this was actually like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Very, very recent. I almost wish she was here to tell it, but she told me I could tell it. So they go get drinks, and then it went well, and they were like, oh, we're both kind of hungry. Let's just go get dinner as well. And the guy's like, oh, let's go to like this restaurant. My friend's a chef there, and he can hook us up. And it's like a very expensive, fancy restaurant that is not, typical first date. But anyway, she's like, okay, let's do it. And he's like, oh, can you get the Uber?
Okay.
She said she thought it was weird, but she's like, oh, I figured he's going to pay for dinner, so I'll get the Uber.
That was when I said, okay, I was like, wait a second. Okay.
And I feel like that's fair too.
That is
like
fair.
To split like a few things, whatever. Yeah. So then she said he did pay for drinks though. But then they go to this restaurant, and the chef, who's his friend, is just like bringing them like plate after plate, like so much food. And then they got the bill, and he asked her to split it, and it was literally like $200. Yeah. And she was like, I guess. And so they split it, and then they boxed up all the leftovers, and he took them all home. And he didn't ask her if she wanted any. He just like took the whole bag and then got in the Uber and went home. And
Sir, in this economy, you're going to take home all the leftovers.
I know. And then I think he texted her and was like, oh, that was so fun. But she said that he was one of those guys that did not ask a question about her, but she could tell you his life story, like loves talking about himself, just like ego thing. Took her to this fancy restaurant, like, oh, I can hook us up. My friend works there. And then asks her to split the bill. And I'm not trying to say that I assume that a guy's going to pay. No. But if you pick a restaurant,
that's always
it's a fancy restaurant that costs a lot of money, I think you should pay for it. Because I wouldn't ask a guy to go to a dinner the first time I met him to a meal that's going to cost $200 if I didn't expect to pay for it.
Yeah. My rule of thumb was always, and is still, like, if you invite a person on a date, you pay for it.
Yeah.
So, like, if you invite to the restaurant, you pay for it. Unless you've already said in advance, we're going to split it.
Totally. And then she said that, she's like, I kind of want to, like, say something and, like, tell him why, but I don't know how to say it. And I was like, if he asks you, you could say, hey, I had fun, but to be completely honest, I was a little caught off guard when you asked me to split the check, because if I knew that we were going to split it, I probably would have suggested somewhere more casual.
Yeah.
And I feel like, though, he still wouldn't have understood. Like, I feel like he still would have spun it on her because he seemed to have a big ego from the way that she was describing him. But then she was going to Italy for a wedding a few days later. And right before she went to Italy, he texted her and was like, have a good trip. I've been thinking about you, like, blah, blah, blah. And she texts back and goes, how are the leftovers, LOL. But it gets worse because he thought she was being serious. Like, he thought she was being dead serious. And I think he answered the question, like, they were good.
Just like rubbing salt in the wound, sir.
So bad. That's so bad. Don't ever split the bill, but then just
take all
it.
the food.
Like, be like the littlest bit considerate, especially if you splitting the check is fine. It's fine.
You know what I just realized? Rebecca does not have a microwave. How's she gonna heat up those leftovers?
No, the thing is, she hates leftovers. She wouldn't want them anyway.
But
it's the principle.
It's the principle
she
of
paid
the thing.
for it. She paid for half the bag that he was taking home.
That is true.
Yeah.
Oh my
yes,
gosh.
I agree though.
When I see her next, I need to ask her.
Ask her just how the leftovers were.
I absolutely need to ask her how the leftovers were. Yeah, I think I would have said something. Especially if you know, now I'm like, say something because you're never going to see them again.
I know. That's
if
what
you
I was
know
thinking.
You're not.
Yeah. And I'm like, if he asks why, like, he should know why. Like, he should not be trying to flex and be like, oh, let's go to this place.
No.
And then ask her to get the Uber. It's like, oh, you're such a baller, but you're going to ask the girl that you're with.
And like,
to
if your
pay for
friend's
the
going to
Uber?
hook you up, like, there should be a significant discount. If
Yeah.
you're going to be like, my friend's going to hook us up.
I think he did probably give them some stuff for free, but then it was just such an expensive place that it was still that much money.
Oh my God.
I'm like, I'd be so fucking mad. But like, what can you say at that point? Like, if you're sitting there at the table.
If you're in the middle of it, like.
Yeah, and they're like, can we split the bill? What are you going to say? No. Like, you have to pay for the bill.
I have heard of people just cutting and running. I don't think I could ever.
I think I would do that if I was at a restaurant or something and the guy was like eating and drinking a ton. And I don't know. If they said split the bill, I might do one of those things where you like go to the bathroom and I just like hand the waiter $50 for mine and then be like, this is for my half. I don't know what he's doing. And like, goodbye.
I'm going.
Yeah.
I have to go.